owners in the areas that might be annexed to the city. And you in particular probably have a better feel for that than staff does. So I guess the question would be from staff is what is it you would like to come forward, and sort of from staff back to you is how would you propose that the city address those issues, particularly property owner approval?
Years ago, we did that in Southeast Hemet. There was a lot of work. It's not cheap to get the statistics and the numbers and the things that you need, especially what it's going to do to cost of service.
Yeah.
One of the things about Southeast Hemet is it's residentially rich and commercially poor. The tax benefit to pay for services was what you have to look at, and as you look at where we are on the north side, that happened just before I got on council, north side all the way to Lake Street. Then we looked at the south side, and there was about 22,000 residents then, and looking at how to make it pay for itself with the services you have to provide when you don't have very much commercial. That was a little difficult.
Yeah, public safety is a big deal.
Yeah, public safety providing, and then so it's a lot of work, and then LAFCO has a big say. So it got turned around on us because there were people who were out there telling the people that it was going to cost them more for their property tax. It was going to cost them more for their they'd have to get a new title insurance policy, which that wouldn't be true because it's not selling property. So there was a lot that went on.
The trash.
We ultimately did not. Yeah, the trash
thing you talked about.
There's all kinds of things. So ultimately we didn't go forward with that, but we did go forward with some of the other annexations that you see have been done on the west side especially.
As Commissioner Van Arsdale points out, that it is not an inexpensive process. There is a cost to apply to LAFCO. There has to be an environmental document prepared. There has to be a plan of services prepared. You have to do that. The fiscal impact analysis part of the plan of services. You'd have to do the general plan and zoning for that area, which is, you may remember from last year when you did the zoning consistency, can be rather controversial. The cost to process even a relatively simple annexation is probably in excess of $100,000. So, one of the questions the city council in particular is going to ask right off the bat is, where's that money going to come from?
Right.
So, most annexations today are initiated by property owners. It's not to say that they can be initiated by the city, but the big question is always, what do the property owners think? Usually, in county areas, as I said, the differences in regulations are often an issue. Most county areas, you have larger lot sizes, frequently not served by sewer. Animal regulations in the county are typically considerably different than those in the city, even where you look at similar lot sizes. And so oftentimes it turns on the issue of permitted animal uses and the numbers of permitted animals in rural areas.
I just think the only way for the city to grow and to have, to have an economic future is to include the residents in the part of this community that aren't being included. I think that companies will not come here because they're not seeing the 22,000 homes of people that make in excess of $100,000 a year.
Well,
so I think it's restricting the city because we're not being, and I say we because it's me. Are not being included.
I would say when you're looking at a commercial enterprise, that usually the more sophisticated ones will perform market studies. They will look at census data, and typically, the sort of standard is that you look at population within a 1 mile radius, a 5 mile radius, and a 10 mile radius of the proposed location. And those studies are prepared without regard to city boundaries. They look at the data that's there, and certainly Hemet has profited from those people that do mostly shop in Hemet. So we're already capturing a lot of the shopping from those people. The city of Hemet, because of its history, is largely blessed with a fairly robust retail market. I know it may not seem like that at times, but when you think about it, here we are 10 miles from any freeway, and yet we have an auto mall. We have a shopping mall with a couple of majors. We have a solid base of retail. I recently looked at major retailers. I looked at the 100 largest retailers in the country. And after excluding those that were only located on the East Coast or the South, looked at of those 100 largest retailers in the country who were not located in the city of Hemet, and it was only a handful. And those are generally department stores that are located on freeways, like Dillard's, for example. So we're already pretty well blessed with a reasonably robust retail marketplace for our population and location. We are benefiting from those people that live in the sphere because they do come here to shop, and market studies do consider that. So it's really defining a benefit analysis for those residents, or for those property owners, of what would they gain by annexing to the city. And, largely what drives that and what drives incorporations of cities, which we're seldom seeing anymore, is more local control. But for rural areas, most rural areas would rather not have more local control because they enjoy their rural lifestyle, which cities generally look at more suburban or urban type of lifestyles.
Well, thank you. That definitely gives more insight and perspective to my thoughts.
Certainly, if you'd like to come in, we could discuss that further individually.
We add it to my list of things to do, for sure.
I'll be the chair of that committee.
I'll go door to door and see how people feel about it.
Yeah.
That's actually something that would probably need to be done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll wait till it's much warmer outside.
Been there, done that, and I wouldn't say that it was horrible, but it was challenging, and especially with the misinformation that kept coming out of it. But I really do agree with you regarding the average income issues. Hemet has always had the lower average income, and a big part of that was our retirement community. So we kept trying to convince people, look, it's spendable income. They usually have their house paid for, their car paid for, and they don't have to support kids, and so that was a big argument. But anyway, I have nothing to report.
Commissioner Worth.
I did have a question. At the State of the City addressed by Mayor Wright, we got talking with Raintree in regards to the McSweeney Farms development, and there was, I guess they were waiting on some approvals from the city staff, and I was just wondering if there was an update, if they're good to go, if they're moving forward, what's the status?
We've been working with Raintree on McSweeney Farms. We've processed a community facilities district to assist them in financing of the infrastructure within that project. There have been a number of issues with regards to that because the bonds that were sold still didn't finance the complete cost of that infrastructure services, and trying to work through with Raintree how we would make sure that the difference was covered has been an issue that we've had continuing discussions about. A major part of that infrastructure cost is the improvement of the Cactus Valley Wash, which contains major drainage course that has to be crossed for the facilities and to protect the properties that are being proposed for development from flooding. Raintree has asked the city to provide them certain assurances, which in staff's mind are a little out of the ordinary. It's sort of like yes, if you do those things, you'll be able to go forward, but they sort of want us to provide a blank check that in the way of assurances, and we've been discussing exactly how we can assuage their concerns without us sort of spending a large amount of time to assure them that they'll be able to go forward. It's sort of a chicken and egg kind of thing to some degree. It's like, well, if you do this, you'll be able to go forward, but you need us to tell you all of those steps in the process. So that's one of the reasons why staff has been working really hard to attract national builders to the city that are familiar with all of the steps. We're working with a national builder on another project, and they came in and sort of went through the whole process and outlined it and said, here's all the conditions for this project, and these are the ones that we have no question that we comply with. These are ones we have some questions about, and these are ones that we would ask if there's any compromise that the city can work on, and we have some suggestions about the compromises. So that's the approach of a national builder. What we have in Raintree is they're coming to us and say, tell us what we need to do. So we're working through that, and I'm hopeful that in the next couple of weeks we'll have that completely resolved. We do have another community facilities district for Raintree that we're taking forward on the next council agenda. So we're continuing to work through and progress with them, but some of it is their expectation that we outline for them the steps that they need to take.
You would think that, they're doing the whole Green Valley specific plan over on Ethanak in between 70 or the 215 and Getz Road, that huge development, that's all Raintree. You'd think that they would have an idea of infrastructure and what's
Well,
required.
I'm sure that they do. It's just we were a little taken aback by them asking us to define the path for them.
The CFDs, which is a big thorn in my side regarding San Jacinto because they have them everywhere, and they're really high property taxes.
Well, one of the things that we include, and actually the state mandates that you consider this now, is that the community facilities district cannot exceed 2% of the value of the properties after development.
Well,
but it's still an additional burden.
An additional burden on the property owners for a very long time. And my biggest complaint was when everybody was coming in, building, and then saying, well, we can't do this without the CFDs. They helped to get the market going, that's true, and then prices shot through the roof, and they benefited because they came and complained to councils that they couldn't do it unless they had these CFDs. Then the prices of homes shot way up. They got to sell them at the higher price, take off with the money, and the property owners that bought them are stranded with the paying off the CFDs. I always thought, and I don't know if legally they could do it, is to say if properties shot through the roof and they were getting $600,000 instead of $400,000 or whatever the difference was, that there should be a limit and they should have to start paying that down, because they're the ones who take off with all the profit and leave your property buyer to pay it forever.
But the property buyer knows it when they buy it. You can't have that defense. When they buy the property, they're made aware at the time of purchase.
They're made aware that they are going to have that. But what I'm saying is this.
It's the perks of buying in a new development.
Well, let me finish. The difference is that those property owners are ours then. They are our citizens. They are here to live and raise their families and try to make their living. The difference is that instead of buying things for another $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year, they're having to pay it in property taxes. Well, and they could be putting that into the city's economy if there was a way to mitigate that.
As Commissioner Leverton kind of alludes to, community facilities district are basically a method of financing. So what we have in communities such as Hemet, which are relatively low median incomes, it's very difficult to get financing for projects. Community Facilities District provides an alternative financing method through the sale of bonds to the public to finance that. So they are.
I get it. It's just a,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
just
they
a
are,
thorn in my
they
side.
are advised of
And
those
very
costs.
much mine too. I get it. I get it. I get it.
I mean, purchasers of property are advised of the community facilities districts and the amount that would be done. In theory, and I understand your concerns, but in theory, the alternative would be the developer would be able to obtain private financing, which then would be reflected in a higher cost for the house.
Right.
So, in theory, it's just a different method of financing. No question, what you allude to sometimes happens. I'm not aware of any city that's tried a mechanism such as what you've suggested in terms of capturing that additional sales.
I know. A lot
it
of
would be
the way we
difficult
did
to
it
do.
was we just said no to a lot of CFDs. But
On the flip side of it, they're collecting a higher property tax on their base of their 1.13 if it's a higher sales price. So
yeah,
there's a benefit to the cities.
I would say one of the reasons, I've talked a lot with developers in the time that I've been here, and one of the things that's come out in those discussions is the developers are having a very hard time getting private financing to build projects in Hemet because of our relatively lower prices to the surrounding areas and to our lower median incomes. So it's very difficult for developers to get adequate financing to be able to build their projects. A CFD is simply that, an alternative. And again, home buyers are advised in considerable detail about what the impacts of that are.
That's why I bought an old house.
So, just to wrap up my question, the status is we're still working with them at McSweeney. Is the ball in our court or in their court, or kind of a combination?
Well, they've asked us to provide them information of what they need to do, so we're working on that and hope to have something in the next week or so to be able to provide to them that they would then feel comfortable with purchasing. Including, as part of that, is we're doing another CFD for them that will be on next week's council agenda. So we're continuing to work with them.
Got a lot of
We
neighbors
would
that
like
are
to
close
see
by
that.
there.
We would like to see that project move forward. And we do have a national builder lined up, ready to go in the next phase of that project as soon as they get the assurances that they are seeking. But as the city attorney indicated, it's sometimes difficult for us to provide an ironclad assurance. There's always risk involved in development.
There's a lot of people in that area looking forward to that project moving forward. So,
As is the city.
yeah. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay, future agenda items.
So what you'll see in the future is a cell tower coming to you at Columbia in Florida. This will be multi-prong, eucalyptus style tower.
You know who the carriers are?
I don't know what the I'm sorry, AT&T.
It's monopine. Monopine.
Oh, it's monopine.
Monopine, yeah. Yeah, cool.
You try to get a better tree, but I guess you can.
It's a Pinus cellularis.
Pinus.
That's the proper technical term
Yeah,
for it. Pinus cellularis.
They do a pretty good job with
There's
those.
Palmus cellularis also.
Oh, the palms are nice too.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we will adjourn to the February 4th meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Good job. I think it was last time.